You're looking for a miracle. Just look around. You could look up. You could look down. I'm sure you will marvel at the birds flying through the air, the details in the trees and plants you see, the way the sand slides through your feet on the beach, the animals of the sea, and even the dynamic makeup of the human body. We can look everywhere, feel everything like the air that you breathe, and know that's nobody but God. But then turn around and take a look at me. You see, God didn't stop delivering miracles as soon as the ink dried on the scrolls of the Bible. I know because in 2021, He worked a miracle in my life for everyone around me to see. Let me paint you a picture. One morning in 2018, I woke up from a night's sleep and I couldn't move my arms or my legs. Nothing was responding. The more I tried to move, the more it hurt to even attempt it. This just came on out of the blue. No warning. I panicked, but took some pain pills that helped me go back to sleep, hoping I just woke up from a bad nightmare. When I awoke again, I could move, but my body was considerably weak. I needed assistance just to be able to get around. I went to the emergency room in a journey that if I didn't live it, I myself wouldn't even believe it began. No one told me that yesterday would be my last day at work, ever. No one told me to appreciate walking unassisted yesterday. Being able to lift a drink to my mouth without shaking yesterday. Or feeding myself before a simple fork would be too heavy to lift just yesterday. Because today, this visit to the ER would start a downward spiral that would continue to gradually get worse as the days piled on. From 3 days in the hospital to a week in the hospital to this neurologist to another neurologist. You can't imagine how my frustration began to grow because as I was getting passed around, I went from a little assistance to get around to walker dependence to sometimes my wife is pushing me around in a wheelchair. They cut into me twice, but still couldn't find the answers. I'm sent to Vanderbilt Hospital where they have some of the best doctors in the country. No answers. They send me to Minnesota, the Mayo Clinic. I stay for a week and then come back for another week. Finally, they give me answers, but not answers I wanted to hear, but answers nonetheless. All I can tell you is the word severe just kept bouncing around in my head to the point it felt like my mind was going to explode. Severe, severe, severe. And then I heard him say, there's really nothing you can do other than try to make your days better. But if things keep progressing the way they have been, in about 5 years, you will more than likely be completely wheelchair bound and dependent. Let me tell you, I ate that diagnosis. I swallowed it whole. I did not chew it. I didn't attempt to break it down or dissolve it. I let it drop straight down to the pit of my stomach and stew there. For 3 long years, I sat on it, depressed, soliciting the prayers of my parents, ministers, and others, watching my health deteriorate, breaking down in front of people where family and friends would have to hustle to help me, when my body would lock up like the Tin Man when he'd run out of oil. After 3 years, I sat in the corner of my bedroom, looked at my wife and my little ones laying in the bed, and said, enough is enough. I couldn't imagine this being the only father my babies ever knew. Tears started rolling down my face. Right then, I was faced with all the days, months, years of pain, not just in one spot, but all over my body. The pain that could get so bad it would make me cry out. It could hurt me to even consider moving any part of my body. A quiet whisper could sound like a scream through a microphone in my ear. To slide just a top sheet over my legs at night felt like you were pouring layers of concrete to bury me in my sleep. As I'm sitting there staring my reality in the face, I can remember being so weak that a tiny plastic fork felt like an anvil in my hands and arms, and I'd have to ask my wife to finish feeding me. But at this moment, I didn't call anyone to pray for me. I decided it was time for me to go to God for myself. I cried out to him, not knowing what to expect, but from the bottom of my heart, I said, God, I surrender. I can't go on this way. I'll do what you want me to do. I'll be who you want me to be. If you'll just take this pain away. Lord, if you take this pain away, maybe the doctors can figure out what's wrong with me. I promise you this day, I'll do your will. I surrender. Then out of nowhere, I heard my name called. I didn't know what to think. I thought it was my wife, but it sounded a lot closer to my voice than hers. But I didn't answer. For what I was going through, I honestly thought I was truly losing it until I heard it again. Then the math started mathing. I had just laid it all out for God, and here was this voice calling my name. But it wasn't so loud that it shook the room like I'd imagined it would be. It was smooth and sweet. I describe it later as a loud whisper, like I would imagine my best voice sounded like talking to a lady. And before I could answer the second time, he called my name a third, and I finally answered. I wish I could say I answered all proper, like I am he, or here I am, or something to make the story sound better. But as a scared and confused human, I answered, huh? He said, get up and start marching. Now I'm trying my best to put you in that room with me, trying to put you in my mindset. I had just gotten home from driving my two boys to their mother's house. To walk then up the stairs into my bedroom was a heavy, heavy task. One that I had rested the majority of the day to be prepared to do. I was sitting in the recliner next to my bed knowing it'd be a couple of hours before I'd even attempt to get up to make it to my bed to go to sleep. So God asked me to do the two things that were the furthest away from my mind at the moment. Getting up. And then once I got up, start marching. If he was any person standing in front of me, the look he would get at that point. But I prayed for it, and I knew in my heart it was God talking to me. I gently rose to my feet, and I started my version of marching. My heels could barely leave the floor, but you could at least see the bend in my knees. Immediately, the pain reintroduced itself. I wanted to quit because my body knew if I kept going, it would only get worse. But I kept on marching. Trust me, that pain got even harder to bear. I started screaming out in pain as I was trying my best to pick my feet up off the floor. But at this point, the only thing moving was my will. The marching orders were transmitting down, but the execution was barely getting an inch in movement, almost like shock treatment just to show message received. The pain to move that inch or give that nudge was enough to shut my whole body down. It had already spread all over me. All I had to do was drop at that point and cry out for help. That voice never left me though. Even when I was hell-bent on giving up, he said, march through the pain. I had to find something in me that I never had before. That mustard seed. You see, because I had pushed myself before for my kids and it led to me passing out or in bed for a full day or more, I knew what lay ahead, but I was not going to block my own blessing. I kept on marching. Everything was happening as normal. My body was locking up. I could barely move my mouth anymore as my jaws began to clench in pain. My head felt like a bomb had exploded on the inside, and my skin was the only thing holding the explosion in. But then a funny thing started happening. All of a sudden, my heels started lifting off the floor again. Oh, the pain remained the same, but there was a shift. God started speaking to me in a way that left my sickness behind. He started telling me about the work he had for me to do. All I could do was acknowledge and accept the challenge, as my feet now were completely lifting off the floor because I kept on marching. That mustard seed began to grow, because as I kept lifting my feet, I found that my knees would get a little higher with each step. I saw that my feet would elevate more and more. Now the pain was starting to trickle away. By this time, God and I were in deep conversation. You see, my wife, who had awakened at some point during my screaming out in pain and just watched, she would tell me I was in deep conversation and she didn't want to do anything to disturb me. Eventually, my marching in place turned into me marching around the house, pain-free. Let me repeat that, not to make sure you heard me, but because every time I say it, it stirs something up in me. I began marching around the house, pain-free. If you're looking for a miracle, see, God allowed me to suffer in front of everyone. So many times I was embarrassed to have so many people have to help me or push me around or even carry me. But I believe God allowed me to be a spectacle because He didn't want me to be a story told. He wanted me to be a miracle witness. You can look up. You can look down. But then turn around and take a look at me. I am a walking miracle. Thank you, God.